Yep, head right to that tan line. Now we get up there, we are going to
We've been doing these kayaks for a while, and now we're starting to rekindle these programs and start to vary our offerings by going around to different county parks. So today we'll be leaving from Trails End here, going to Masonboro Island, which is a North Carolina National Estuarine Research Reserve island, totally uninhabited. We're going to go check that out. We've also got coming up River Road Park. We're going to go out to Campbell Island, Keg Island, River Road, doing Airlie kayaks at Bradley Creek. So we're going to try and mix it up, but today's a beautiful day, and we're going to go see this wonderful Masonboro Islands.
We're going to start heading this way, kind of hugging these docks here, but we are going to cross the intercoastal waterway, the Atlantic coastline boat highway. I think there's some traffic right now. But today we'll be heading over to a barrier island, and we'll check things out over there, talking about this bark pine, this grass here, how it survives in the salt, and checking things out.
So on the way over here, we saw a bunch of these great egrets. They're still flying around over there. And it turns out 100 years ago, year 1900, the Audubon Society was formed. And it was partly because of that bird at the time. Who knows, what were birds being used for heavily? Big waterfowl.
Feathers.
Hat feathers, that's right. And so they were hunting them to near extinction. And that's when they started to, the idea of going on bird hikes, or the Christmas bird count was an idea where you would go out and census the birds instead of shoot them and take them back. And so starting in the year 1900, that's now the oldest existing citizen science project, taking a bird survey. And it started with that great egret. And then over here you can see this sign here posted by Dr. Jim Parnell. If anyone knows him and his wife Frances, they're very, very busy in the community, and he is Mr. Bird around here, and what they're trying to protect are colonial water nesting birds. So out here, even on the bare sand, you'll have nests, because a lot of these waterfowl, especially the shorebirds, their eggs are designed to look like pebbles and sand. They're usually speckled, and so out here, a big concern is actually dogs and foxes in particular coming out here eating the eggs right on the sand, because these birds, they don't make a nest up in a tree, they make a nest right on the sand, and they try to not draw any attention to it, so it doesn't look like much of anything. So just know that they're out here, and that's what a colonial water bird is, just a group of birds that nest together. So around here we have some amazing what are called important bird areas, IBAs. On the Cape Fear River, we have a tenth of the world's white ibis population breed on the bird island down there. And around here, we get skimmers, are kind of a species of concern around here. Piping plovers are federally endangered. All those are birds that would use this habitat. And then Chris was pointing out on the way, there's Chris right there, there was some PVC pipes sticking out of the water back there, and those were marking oyster beds, you're saying?
The oyster site program that we have, so the UNCW students come out and plant the beds, and it's like I said, this kind of area, the beach is what they do, and it kind of, one, it marks them so people don't run over them, but they put them out there for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oysters need to glom onto old oysters. That's how they grow. That's to take the calcium out of that old shell and to build their shell. So kind of recycled.
Yeah, the oysters really are our keystone species in the salt marsh creeks and the sound side, because they're the ones that filter all the water. They're the ones that provide habitat and food for all kinds of things. And so Chris was talking about oyster shell recycling. Starting in 2007, North Carolina passed the law you can no longer dump old oyster shell into the landfill. And it's for many years people use oyster shells to make roads. Airlie Road used to be Shell Road, going all the way to downtown. But now we encourage people to recycle that shell, put it back in the water, and the Division of Marine Fisheries with North Carolina organizes that. And like Chris was saying, it provides a hard substrate. You put the oyster shell in the water, and the new oysters can attach to that. And the way the oyster works, when the water hits the right temperature, about 58 degrees, maybe it's 68 degrees. I always get that mixed up. But when it's the right temperature, maybe it's 58.
I think it's 58.
The male oysters release their sperm and all the female oysters release their eggs, and they mix out in the water, and you get these tiny little larvae. And you can fit 1 million oyster larvae in the palm of your hand. They're so small. And the first 2 weeks of their life, they can swim. But in that 2-week time span, they need to find a hard, dark surface to attach to. And oyster shell is what they've been using for millions of years. We've seen oyster shell pulled out of a Castle Hayne quarry that were 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet long. Nothing like that is out here now, because we've lost 90% of the native oyster population in North Carolina since the year 1900. So 90% decline in oysters, and that's largely from over-harvesting, kind of at the beginning of the century. And then today's issues include habitat degradation, pollution, and sedimentation. Anytime we get loosened soil into the water and it settles on top of the old oyster beds, just a dime's width of sediment on there is enough to prevent a new oyster from attaching. So the baby oysters essentially suffocate trying to anchor themselves. And the other reason Chris was talking about the oyster shells are so important, they dissolve slowly in the water, releasing calcium carbonate, which the living oysters absorb from the water and grow their shell. So imagine we were pulling the shells out for a century, denying the water of a calcium source, putting it all on land, and now the oysters are getting over-harvested. The pollution in the water makes them, basically stresses them out, and they can't fight off their illnesses they normally could. Like, there's diseases like dermo and MSX that kill oysters by the millions, and sometimes they can fend them off, but not when you're stressed out. And so it's up to us to recycle our oyster shells, pick up our dog poop, and make sure we recycle plastics too, so they don't get in the water.